Welcome back, everybody. Here we are with issue 88, the review. So let's go ahead and get started. So first thing we have is the Upsilon-Class Command Shuttle. After the First Order was recently established in the unknown regions out of the ashes of the defeated Galactic Empire, it moved to mobilize itself in preparation to strike at the New Republic. Fundamental to this objective was the partnership with Sanar Jamis Fleet Systems and Army Systems, manufacturers specializing in producing machines of war who brought with them decades of military shipbuilding expertise. Together, they developed a renewed arsenal of weapons, vehicles, and starships, repurposing and rebuilding a battle-ready fleet for the First Order. Let's go ahead and talk about the Wing It, because it kind of covered a little bit, but this was kind of interesting. Space within the relatively small body of the Upsilon class was maximized by moving many of its systems out into the wings. As a result, the subspace comms antenna array was far larger than it would have been had it been located in the main hull, and the space freed up by this allowed for the addition of more heat sinks, meaning the sensors were less prone to overheating. Another benefit of moving so much into the wings was that the interior could be made large enough to provide a reasonable degree of space and comfort for the First Order commanders and their crew. Old World design. The dark and imposing Upsilon-Class Command Shuttle was designed to transport high-ranking First Order leaders in fittingly ominous style, and like most of Sanar Jamis Fleet Systems creations for the Order, features a general design that harks back to the Imperial era. Most directly, the Upsilon upward folding wing design follows on from the Sanar Fleet Systems and Cygnus Spaceworks Lambda-class shuttle, used widely by the Empire in the Galactic Civil War. Because of their familiarity with the previous design, the newly merged Sanar Jamis encountered few difficulties in developing the new class model in its image. Animal aesthetic. Epsilon class shuttle reaches an intimidating height over 37 meters with its wings in an upward position. Once landed, when its wings retract to half their usual size, the ship recalls the dactylion of Utapau as if resting on a cliff ready to swoop on its next prey. This striking aesthetic is continued into flight where the shuttle slants its sharp and angular wings. Others have been known to refer to the ship more informally as the bat-winged shuttle, not only because of the distinctive wings, but because of its dark color, which is as black as a starless night. Between the large wings sits the shuttle's body, its forward-facing cockpit lit by an eerie reddish glow that emanates from the wide forward-facing window. An Upsilon class requires only one pilot, but a maximum crew of 5 ensures a smooth flight, with all stations manned by skilled specialists. The passenger compartment can hold about 10 people and is set directly behind the cockpit. Most of the aft section is dedicated to the ship's hyperdrive and two SJFS-200A sublight ion engines. In the wings, although the Upsilon class is relatively well protected, principally by its two powerful twin-heavy laser cannons, its biggest assets are its defensive capabilities, which have been built into the wings. The upper part of these house advanced sensor suites that monitor communications and scan for possible adversaries long before they reach the shuttle, while shield projectors and jamming equipment can be found in the lower part of the wing, close to where they join with the main body. The wings in flight configuration slanting outward helps to maximize the functionality of the sensors, which are called on more frequently when in the skies than when on land. Typically, this is a craft's most vulnerable position, but even here the Upsilon class is comparatively well protected. The upper wings are encased in protective Durasteel armor, while special systems protect the sensors from possible physical damage. the armor in the lower wings, and the deflector shield in case the crew cabin and the passenger compartment against enemy fire during landing and takeoff. Attack on Maz's castle. After capturing Resistance ace Poe Dameron from the Jakku village of Tanal, and whisking him away on his Upsilon-Class Shuttle, Kylo Ren turned his attention to pursuing the pilot's astromech. His search took him to Takodana, where First Order ties laid waste to the castle of Maz Kanata. After setting his shuttle down, Ren surveyed the scene before heading into the forest after the human girl Rey, who had traveled to the world with BB-8, as well as Han Solo, Chewbacca, and Finn. There he used the Force to freeze her and read her mind, realizing she had seen the San Tekka's map that could lead him to Skywalker. The arrival of the Resistance forced the First Order to retreat, but Ren had found what he was looking for. Once again, a huge figure in the fight for freedom in the galaxy was spirited away into the sky by Ren's ominous bat-like transport. Crossover. In the summer of 2013, the designs of shuttles produced by concept artists for The Force Awakens distinctly resembled the Lambda-class vessels seen in Return of the Jedi. However, design soon began in earnest for a Jedi Killer limo, a creation devised by Ryan Church as a cross between a TIE fighter and a Lambda-class shuttle. By September, James Klein's painting of the hangar in Starkiller Base featured a shuttle that closely resembled the one ultimately seen in the film, though with far shorter wings and a larger main hull. And soon after, another Ryan Church painting from October showed the designs for his shuttle were coalescing perfectly, huge wings and all. There you go. Visiting Maridun. So this planet here was seen in Clone Wars, and it's kind of interesting. Let's go ahead and go through this real quick. In an eponymous system in the Rolian sector of the Outer Rim territories, Maridun is the very definition of unassuming. So if you're curious what eponymous is, I had to look it up. It means to be named from a specific name. So in this case, the Maridun system uh, is named for the planet Maridun. So there you go. Uh, the world of gently undulating terrain covers the rolling grasslands. Maridun has survived largely unscathed due to the fact that it has little to offer off-world industry. Unlike, for example, poor Lothal, Maridun has no resources worth stripping from the surface. Instead, it has grass, seemingly endless quantities of it. Maridun's grasses grow high, easily towering over 2 meters tall in places. The grasslands are interspersed with giant trees in locations where water reserves are closest to the surface. Thick and deep-rooted, each single tree is made up of others that grow close by and merge with the mother tree over time. They produce enormous seed pods, huge and heavy, that thud into the soft, loamy soil. The new trees that grow from germinated seeds then lean against the larger trunk, adding to their girth and support to the colony before merging with it. The pods also serve as food for burrowing insects and for hardy mammals with strong, gnawing teeth. They even served as home to some early off-world colonists. The best known of those colonists were the Lurmen, seeking to escape the horrors of the Clone Wars, which had already seen their species persecuted and enslaved on their homeworld of Maigito. A group of Lurmen escaped their torment and fled to Maridun. Eschewing virtually all technology, the ardently pacifist species set up home on the planet. They dug out the seed pods and set them up on end to become homes for the various family groups. The pod's tough shells were proof even against the claws of the strongest predators on Maridun, while oil extracted from them was found to heal wounds. The only serious encounter with the wider galaxy came in the Clone Wars when the Separatist invasion of the planet might have spelled the end of the defenseless Lurmen had it not been for the intervention of 3 Jedi and their clone troopers. When they had arrived, the Lurmen colonists encountered 2 particular species that had differing impacts on them. The first, called carrier butterflies by the Lurmen, were blue-winged insects that made loyal pets, but could also mimic voices. This meant that, with training, they could carry messages across great distances. Far less friendly were the Mastiff Phalon, large, muscular quadrupeds that evolved from an ancient avian ancestor. These creatures were covered in gray feathers so small they resembled fur. Larger reddish feathers formed a mane around the neck that bore an intimidating vulture-like beaked head. The beast's scaly feet were tipped with vicious claws. Though fast, the Phalon weren't especially smart or agile, and certainly not by comparison with the Lurmen, who soon learned to ensnarl the legs of the Mastiff Phalon with their ropes. The Amani. So this is from Legends, and I don't know how much of this Legends stuff I should really go through, but we'll go through it because it's kind of fun. The native sentients on Maridun were the warlike tribal Amani, standing between 2 and 3 meters in height. This reptilian species had pale yellow skin on the front surface of their flat bodies, changing to a deep green on their backs. They had short legs with white feet, which they made up for by having extremely long arms. Expert hunters and ferociously territorial, they lived in small tribal groups across the grasslands, especially in more humid, rainy areas. Their thick skins exuded poisonous slime that was a natural deterrent to native predators. Captive Armani, taken by slavers, made excellent scouts and mercenaries. One called Amanaman lived at the court of Jabba the Hutt on Tatooine shortly before Jabba's death. And they show kind of this picture of, that must be from a comic book or something, but that's what they kind of look like. Pod homes. The seed pods used by the Lurmen colonists as homes have their design and origin the same paintings of the grassland planet of Sisamon that would in turn go on to be the inspiration for the look of Lothal. The paintings, dating right back to the work of concept artist Ralph McQuarrie for Return of the Jedi, showed hive-like rock formations that eventually became the Kilklik mounds of Alderaan in early representations of the world. Eventually, it was decided that the paintings would be used as the basis for the planet Lothal in Rebels. So yes, the Kilklik in Star Wars: The Old Republic game, there's plenty of Kilklik, and you can see these types of mounds where they live and whatnot. So yeah, there you go. Now there we go. Fleet tactics, the basics. The most basic tactics employed by the naval fleet groups have remained more or less unchanged throughout the various epochs of galactic history and are based on 2 core factors that define every fleet engagement: the battle zones and the battle line. In the zone, there are 4 principal battle zones. These extend outward from the main battle line, which is determined by the position of the largest ships of any fleet group, most usually the cruisers, Star Destroyers, Mon Calamari cruisers, and so on. At the extreme edge is the long engagement zone, LEZ. This is defined by the farthest effective distance of the most powerful weapons of any fleet group. The key word is effective. The large engagement zone is not defined as the area where a gunner might get lucky at extreme range and graze a passing fighter with a careless pilot. It is the farthest range at which a potentially deadly or highly damaging shot can be accurately achieved. When two fleet groups engage, that is, when one enters the other's LEZ, the standard tactic is to concentrate fire on the escorting ships. At such range, the smaller support ships cannot return fire, so they can only hope to weather incoming attacks. As such, support vessels and even smaller picket ships will begin to withdraw, or at least attempt to, shortly before their fleet enters the LEZ of the enemy fleet. So we'll talk about the four battle zones here real quick. These consist of the long engagement zone, the kill zone, the secondary zone, and the primary zone, while the LEZ is technically the first zone in which hostilities might commence. The fighting more often begins in earnest in the aptly named kill zone, with the secondary and primary zones being very much the thick of the battle. So you can see here by the diagram, so we have our LEZ, or the long engagement zone, and then we have the kill zone here, and then the secondary zone and the primary zone here. Line of battle. The standard battle line adapted by a fleet group had its core the cruisers, the largest capital ship, or at least the largest vessel available to the fleet group in question. One ship in the main line would be designated a flagship, as this is where the commander of the line would be based. Unless the commander ship was vast, such as Super Star Destroyer Executor, or it was hugely obvious, i.e. there was only one large ship, then the identity of the flagship was generally kept a secret from the enemy for as long as possible. For example, at the Battle of Endor, the Alliance fielded a number of similar Mon Calamari cruisers, along with allowing them to conceal which one was Admiral Akbar's command ship, Home 1. The next line were the smaller capital ships, or even frigates and corvettes. These ships provided backup in the hot spots around the battle, adding additional firepower where it was needed and conducting distraction or rescue missions where appropriate. These ships could form the main battle line in small fleet groups. On the edge of the main battle line, their sensors straining outward to report on the composition and strength of the approaching enemy fleet group were the close support ships. These tended to be freighters and other older disposable ships. They were manned by hardy, stubborn crews that knew the importance of their mission and who were well aware that the likelihood of their survival would plummet if they were caught off guard even for a moment. Lastly, the starfighters in the battle line were the only ships without a fixed position. They had full permission to roam the line, going into any of the battle zones in pursuit of their prey. Though comparatively tiny, fighters and particularly fighter bombers could pose a significant threat to even the largest capital ships. In for the kill. Now we'll go back to this part. The kill zone begins at the point at which all of the largest in the fleet group can bring all their weapons to bear on the enemy. The larger guns of the close support vessels may also be able to make their presence felt in this zone. Generally speaking, the kill zone is also the furthest out of the battle zones in which starfighters do not make a major contribution to the combat. Even so, entering the kill zone heralds an intensifying of the battle, and as the name implies, the start of the serious casualties. The next phase of the battle comes when the ships enter the secondary zone. At this point, the smaller ships join the battle, and the impact of the fighter bombers and assault starfighters is felt. With so many more targets, many darting about between one another, decisions are suddenly more difficult for the fleet group commander. Are their capital ships and close support ships able to focus entirely on enemy cruisers, or must they take time out to assist their own starfighters and thin out the enemy fighters? Do any ships need to withdraw? Should reinforcements be called in? How should the cruisers now be aligned to meet the enemy? The phase of battle that begins with the entering the secondary zone is often where a battle is won or lost, as many choices made here, particularly with regards to maneuvering the slow-moving cruisers, are likely to be the last commanders will have time to make before things really get serious. Win or lose, the primary zone is where starfighters have the advantage. Their speed and maneuverability at this range make it hard for the gunners aboard the cruisers to attack them, much less hit them, even when equipped with the most modern computerized assisted targeting. Instead, the cruisers have to trust the starfighters' screen or their own point defense weapons. These fast tracking light laser cannon turrets trade power for speed, and with less effective while less effective against other capital ships, are useful against smaller fighters. When cruisers enter the primary zone, the time for punishing broadsides has come. Drawing up to one another, firing at almost point-blank range, the behemoths of the battle line slug it out for supremacy. At this range, little skill is involved, however, maintaining shields and armor longest while laying down the heaviest fire wins the day. The primary zone is considered out of bounds for any ships except for cruisers and starfighters. This is a safety measure, as cruisers are comparatively slow to react and maneuver, meaning that collisions with ships from the close support line, for example, are a distinct possibility if they find themselves in the way. The exchange. The exchange is the smallest of the all battle line maneuvers. The opponents sweep past each other, exchanging broadsides as they go. The starships with the strongest shields and hulls and best weaponry will generally come off the best. So this would be the exchange. One's going one way, one's going the other. But then we have capping the T, or I've heard it say cross the T. And this is these two concepts are definitely both very much surface naval concepts. I've heard of all these before. This is the most effective maneuver in which one combatant's battle line crosses the front of an enemy's line. All the cruisers concentrate their fire upon the lead enemy cruiser while probably damaging it severely, while the two enemy cruisers behind are limited to shooting at long range. So everybody would be concentrating here. These two would not be able to fire very much because this one is going to be blocking. So, and they're going to be far enough away that they may not be able to score hits. So yeah, that if you can do that, then you're doing some good stuff. So that's everything in this issue. Again, we worked on this. I do have a bit of an update. I am going to it looks like I'm going to get an Arduino, and I've got access to some LEDs that are at least have twice the density of these. So there's probably twice as many LEDs, I would think, in this kind of length. And so what I'm going to be able to do with the Arduino is program in some potential effects and color changes and all that kind of stuff. So I think that's going to work out quite well. And I think that I'm going to have plenty of length for the resistor. So that's something I need to get worked on. And we'll have to add that to the list of things. So that's going to be coming soon. But that's everything in issue 88. Again, next time in issue 89, we're going to get the base plate for the the cargo area, and so we'll be probably attaching that for issue 89. Thank you very much, everybody, for watching, and may the force be with you always.